Hello, and welcome back to yet another episode of Unsolicited Opinions and My Distracted Rambles. In today's video, I want to talk a little bit about this idea of deriving a kind of pleasure from being confused. Now, I don't know why you're watching my videos, but first of all, you're probably you probably are into this idea of studying the humanities, or gaining a deeper understanding of fields like philosophy, feels like literature, feels like, what should I say, history. Those are the three subjects that I'm primarily interested in: literature, philosophy, and history, and I want to know the interconnections between those three fields. But immediately there's a problem, because some of these reading material that you will receive if you decide to pursue a bachelor's degree in humanities or a Bachelor of Arts, or if you want to dive into post-grad studies in the humanities, and in all these corresponding subjects, some of the readings for these subjects, they're not intuitive at all. Some of the readings for these subjects could be downright obscure, difficult, or sometimes makes you want to bang your head against the wall. And that is going to lead us to today's topic, subject: how do you deal with confusion when you're studying more complicated things like philosophy or history or literature? Because these are inherently non-linear subjects. They're not like engineering. They're not like biology. They're not like something that you could just prove using a theorem, or there's not exactly a rule out there for these subjects. And also, I've written out a companion article of a little story that I'm going to tell. I'm only going to tell a bit of that story on this video, but if you want to read the whole story, it is in the description down below. And in fact, with every future video, I think I'm just going to link you guys to suggested readings, either from academic sources, which is going to give you a deeper understanding of whatever I'm on about, or one of my personal essays on this subject. Anyway, here's a little story. At the end of the year 2018, I was about to enter my last year of senior high school. And just before I entered senior high school, which is like the last year of this entire long-ass journey of educating myself, I've decided to jump ship, to jump away from the ship of, STEM subjects like physics or like chemistry, and I've decided to abandon all of my coursework in STEM and to pursue a course load of studies in the humanities. And one of these units was really interesting. It was called Extended Investigation. And I went into that class without knowing what the hell I was going to research about. So I entered the induction unit for this class, and I went in there, and all of these students, I kid you not, they were some of the most, should I say, intellectually driven people ever. One of them was going to research mangroves with well-established academics at Monash University. Another one already received multiple awards for her research in genetic engineering. So I felt like I was completely out of my depth. So I sat there, and the teacher asked me, "What do you want to research about?" And I just drew a complete blank. At the time, the skeleton idea was to, take something from a philosopher and to apply it to a real, should I say, social problem. But I was entirely confused. And the facilitator said, well, if you want to do something with this subject, you better talk to that one person in this entire school that's kind of into the humanities. So in this group of science students, I stuck out like a sore thumb. So I went to this set teacher's office. She was like the only history teacher in the entire school. And I went to one of her classes, and she basically kept me after class. After hearing that I was interested in, should I say, doing kind of like a philosophical research, like an essay on a philosopher applying this, the concepts of a philosopher to a social problem, she went back to her office and took out 2 books. I remembered it was Understanding Deleuze, and of course, this one, Madness and Civilization by Michel Foucault. So here's the context. I knew very little about philosophy at the time. My knowledge of philosophy was very scattered. I didn't know anything. I've probably read a little bit of Plato and called it a day, but when she sort of threw me into the deeper ends of, understanding works of post-structuralism, I didn't know what to do with myself. And she basically said to me, here's some light reading for you over the holidays. And there I was, an 18-year-old kid, holding a copy of Understanding Deleuze and Madness and Civilization and just reading them, trying to understand whatever the hell's going on. And long story short, it was a grueling experience, and I don't wish this experience on anyone else. But one of the most prominent things that I had to deal with was confusion. Have you ever felt that weird feeling in your chest when you're confused about something, when something doesn't make sense, when reality doesn't make sense? You're like, how could that happen? Because when you come in contact with something that's confusing, you don't even have a reference frame in your brain to, conceptualize the thing. That's why when you encounter something just completely miraculous or something that's completely horrible, you kind of go through this entire reaction of just not knowing what to do with yourself. Intellectually, that's basically the same thing that's happening when you're reading something extremely confusing. When you're taking that material off of a university's website, when you read a few paragraphs of that paper that was assigned to you as a part of your class reading, there's going to be that iffy sense of like, I don't know what to make of this. This is so complicated. I don't understand a thing. What's happening here? And the instinctive thing is to run away. The instinctive thing is to throw that thing off the bus and just run in the opposite direction. Because as human beings, we innately have this desire to cling onto something so familiar. For example, you can run the same understanding of a certain subject in your head over and over and over again. You could speak one language your entire life and not branch out into any other languages because you don't want to deal with that confusion. Or you could get stuck in one specific worldview for your entire life, which is not a very good thing to do. The reason why people get stuck is because they are running away from the process of expanding their web of, should I say, understanding, web of intellectual references or inferences. Hence, this fear is keeping a lot of people back from engaging with disciplines like history, like philosophy, like literature, for example. If the scent of confusion scares you, if that disorientating feeling of my reality is falling apart, or I don't understand this book, I don't understand a passage over here, if that's really scaring you, you have to reconceptualize confusion as a process of expansion. For example, growing pain. When you're growing up, you get all these joint pains and everything else, but that's just the process of you turning from a kid into someone that could reach the top shelf of your fridge. As you're expanding, as you're understanding and probing deeper and deeper into a selected subject or a selected field, expect confusion to arise, but still move forward. Still reread the books that confuse the hell out of you, because with time and practice, it is going to make sense. A perfect analogy that I learned from my French professor was that, she basically said there's nothing smart about French grammar, even though it's very complicated, even though there's so many rules and different tenses. She basically said, if you want to master French grammar, all you have to freaking do is to practice, is to stop wishing for ways to shortcut the process. With a repetitive kind of like engagement with the subject, gradually, you're going to recalibrate your understanding gradually. Maybe. Your first stab at understanding, for example, Madness and Civilization, or some complicated text out there like James Joyce's Ulysses, which I just finished not too long ago, it is going to be so far off the mark. And your professor or people around you, or your friends, they're going to nudge you here and there and to be like, hey, that's a completely stupid interpretation. Hey, you didn't read that passage correctly. And then over time, you're going to get this narrowing effect. You're going to slowly derive a sense of, should I say, certainty out of this entire fog of confusion. But if you don't already have this capacity to hold yourself in that position of, I'm really confused, I'm scared that I'm going to sound stupid, I'm scared to advance my understanding, I'm scared to articulate my current findings or articulate what I've already understood, then you're not moving forward. When I first started reading this, I had to read the same page 3 times to even get a sense of what he was talking about. That was 2 years ago. And even now, when I sit down to reread something like Foucault, or recently I've been reading a lot of essays from Jacques Derrida, I still don't think I really understand anything. But I'm not going to let that stop me from trying to understand it. I'm not going to let that stop me from, for example, discussing the topics presented in Derrida's essays. It's not going to stop me from trying some of these ideas out in one of my papers and, potentially get slapped for it. It is through that adjustment, through tolerating confusion, and through a very deliberate process of, should I say, narrowing down your degrees of uncertainty. That to me is the process of education. That to me is the process of expanding this web that you have, because the alternative is to simply stay put and remain a dumb person for your entire life. So bottom line, if you want to understand a very, should I say, complicated subject, the only way to deal with it is to accept that you're confused and to hold that confusion in your chest, to hold that feeling, and realize that that's probably a symptom of a greater degree of understanding. Do not shy away from that process of getting a few things wrong here and there, because only with time and practice and with people telling you, hey, that's probably stupid, could you really get on the right path. And that's in a sense what I really want to document on this channel in the future. It's just this gradual process of, understanding things that I've not understood before, and to present some of my, immediate thoughts on these subjects. You might agree with me, you might disagree with me, but this entire process of figuring out what it is that I'm reading, of knowing that this person right here, I don't have all the answers, and viewing these videos simply as, documentation of my own journey of reading deeper into things, gaining a deeper understanding of things. That's really the best way to look at it, because, I really don't have all the answers. And if you want to follow me along this journey, here I am. I'm not going anywhere. Anyway, that's all I have to cover in this video. If you like this video, be sure to check out the companion article for this video article in the description down below. And I guess I'll see you in the next one.